Let's see. So we have three experts here today on panel presentations. They're well, I don't want to waste time on introductions, so I guess what I'll do is just ask them a few questions and then turn it over to the crowd. So first question: how come panels are so painful?
I have an answer for that one. I've been on hundreds of panels in my lifetime with people from Beyonce to Bill Gates, even Oprah. There are a ton of other people I'm not going to name drop here. I think the reason why panels are so painful is that everybody's just kind of in their own heads. They're not really thinking about the other people on the panel with them. And, it's a great opportunity for different panel perspectives to be surfaced, but it just doesn't end up happening.
Well, the academic literature shows that panel presentations are clearly more effective than single presentations alone. We've done numerous academic studies controlling for all the exogenous variables. The margins for error are quite small.
Okay, so
Wait! You can never have too many opinions on the same topic. So let me elaborate. So I think we're overcomplicating things a little bit.
Okay, cut. This is getting a little bit too painful. As you guys saw, and as you've probably seen in a lot of panel presentations that you've either been a part of or you've sat in, panels can be pretty awful to sit through sometimes. This is really a lost opportunity because panels are an increasingly popular speaking format. You've probably been to dozens of panels, even just in the last year or so at GSB alone. And you'll probably be invited to speak at panels or moderate panels in your professional career, again, many, many times. Why are panels so painful? Well, we think that there are two reasons. The first is that moderators are often unprepared, and they're often unwilling to step in and intervene when necessary with panelists. And the second is that panelists often feel, as Bert said, that they need to validate their invitation to be up there. And so they'll end up speaking for a really long time without regard to the other people who are sitting right next to them. And so today, what we're going to do is cover a few points for both how to moderate a panel more effectively and also how to participate as a panelist with respect to your other speakers. We're going to start by talking from the moderator's perspective. Begum is going to speak about how to open a session with energy and then also how to keep a conversation going as a moderator. Then Jaime is going to take over and speak about how to intervene forcefully but respectfully, and then also how to facilitate Q&A in a way that's productive for everybody. Ryan is then going to sweep up the end, and we'll talk about how to participate effectively as a panelist. We then love your questions for the Q&A session, and we'll do wrap-up after that.
So let's first start with how to open the session. As you just saw in our panel, the first few minutes are absolutely critical. It can really make or break the whole thing. So we have 3 tips for you. First, hook your audience. Welcome your audience and introduce the topic in an interesting way. For example, make references to any current events that may be on everyone's mind at that point. Second, lay out what's coming. As you just saw in our example, the moderator often forgets to cover the agenda or outline the general guidelines. Don't skip these. And third, actually introduce your panelists. Don't skip the introductions like Jaime did in our example. And make sure to connect your audience with the panelists. So for example, if you're introducing GSB alumni as panelists to a bunch of MBA students, make references to the alumni's time when they were back at the GSB. So now the next step is to keep the conversation moving at an engaging pace. We've all watched Ryan and suffered from his really low energy level. And those are not the panels or panelists we remember fondly. So what are the things that you can do to keep the conversation moving at an engaging pace? 1, ask 5 W's and 1 H. So ask who, what, where, why, when, and how. These questions will move the conversation forward and deeper. Second, make bridges. Look for opportunities to connect ideas between panelists. Jaime, you just referenced point A earlier, and Ryan, you mentioned point B. Are these two ideas related? And finally, test the unsaid. If you sense that there's something that has not been said, test the waters to bring out the unspoken. So tell your panelists, we've been talking about this issue for a while. Are we actually trying to touch upon this other issue X?
As a moderator, you are your audience's advocate. And so if a panelist is boring you, chances are the audience is bored too. If a panelist is taking too long or not making a point, it is your job to intervene. But how do you do this in a respectful and effective way? There are a set of 6 escalating actions you can take in order to do this properly. The first one is to do nothing. Remember, it is always an option to wait out and see if the situation solves by itself. Second is making eye contact. You can shoot a glance at a panelist, or just look at your watch confidently. The third one is movement. You can lean in towards your panelists, change your sitting position, play with your pencil or pen, or just shake your notes. Then you can redirect the conversation, either by restating or clarifying what the panelist is talking about. Going along, you can remind them of the topic, or how much time is left in this specific section. And finally, you can confront them. You could do this by appealing to them, cutting them off, or simply disengaging. Now, after a while with the panelist, it will be your turn to facilitate the Q&A session. This is one of the most appealing parts for guests, for the audience, as they will directly interact with the panelists. Keep in mind some of these tips when you do this. Start by laying out the ground rules and explaining the process about what you're going to do. As questions start to pop up, remember to work the entire room and avoid focusing on a specific section or a specific group of people. When a question is directed to anybody in the panel, prompt a panelist that signals you, or one that has not spoken in a while. To avoid microphone hoarding and long speeches by audience members, you and your microphone runners should never, and I mean never, lose control of the microphone, as this will allow you to interact when it's necessary. And finally, remind everybody when there's just one question left. And also remember that if a question is unfocused or unclear, too detailed or complex, weak, long and winded, or it's simply a comment, help out the questionnaire in clarifying it in order to make it interesting and to ensure that everybody understands it.
Now we got things covered from a moderator's perspective, let's transition to what you can do as a future panelist to make this interesting. We're going to break this down into the 5 P's of being a panelist. First, be professional. You want to look the part because it's how you look and how you show up that makes the first impression on the audience. So ask ahead of the time what the dress code is and then follow it. Second, stay present. Don't be fidgeting or looking at your watch like I was during the panel. It's distracting. You come off like a kid who can't wait to get out of church. Act like an adult and pay attention to what the other panelists are saying. This will allow you to then build upon what's already been said as opposed to just piling on like Begum was about to do. Third, you want to be personal. This means knowing your audience. You want to tailor your message and the examples you give depending on who you are talking to. For instance, if you're talking to a group of GSB alums, you can use terms like touchy-feely. They'll know exactly what you're talking about. However, if you're talking to a group of, say, prospective students, they're likely to come away with a very different message or just confused altogether. Fourth, you want to be powerful. Two ways you can do this are being concise and structuring your message. Remember, being concise is better than being complete. For a general rule of thumb, keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. This shows that you know your main points and also is respectful to the other panelists, giving them time to weigh in. You also want to structure your message. There's several ways to do this. One thing that works for me is providing a high-level summary of what you want the takeaway to be, and then providing more detailed examples as you go through. Finally, this should be a pleasant experience for you. Have fun with it. It's an honor to be chosen to be on a panel, so it's your time to shine. On top of that, the audience is going to pick up whether you're having a painful experience or a pleasant one. That'll help make theirs pleasant as well. So speaking of the audience, we'll now engage you in some Q&A as I hand over to Jaime.